Boris Johnson has been the Prime Minister for, do you know how many days? 43. And he's been accused of a do-or-die approach. But how is that working out for him? Well, Mr. Johnson officially became the Prime Minister on the 24th of July, inheriting a slim working majority from Theresa May. But he lost this on Tuesday when Tory MP Dr. Philip Lee defected to the Liberal Democrats. On the same night, he lost his fight vote in the Commons, which saw opposition MPs and Tory rebels take control of the Commons agenda. In response, he sacked 21 of his own MPs who voted against the government. There were further defeats for Mr. Johnson last night as a bill aimed at stopping a no-deal Brexit was rushed through the House of Commons, and his attempt to trigger an early election blocked by MPs. And today, his own brother, Joe Johnson, has quit as an MP. He's torn between family loyalty and the national interest. Joined now by Sonia Purnell, who's the author of Just Boris, A Tale of Blonde Ambition. Hello to you.
Hello.
Goodness, you're going to have to write a new book.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm not quite sure how long this premiership is going to last. I mean, after all, it's been lurching from one crisis to another, and a fairly major crisis for him today.
Indeed so, and you're talking about the fact that his brother has decided to turn his back on the Prime Minister. Is he a family man?
Boris Johnson? In some ways he is. I mean, remember those Johnson kids, they grew up, they had to fend for themselves from a very early age. Their mother was in hospital, quite often ill, their father wasn't always around. Boris was almost like the father figure to them all. This is a difficult situation. That Joe Johnson, many people close to the family told me how much he used to look up to his big brother, maybe slightly fear him, you know, always trying to compete with him, but sort of gave him that special place. And now you see this rift. I mean, Brexit, like with many families, has sort of caused this rift, but, you know, in the Johnson family times 1,000, of course, because Boris, the senior Johnson of that generation, is pushing this agenda ahead, this no-deal agenda, this Brexit agenda that many other members of that family simply cannot support. And that is why Joe Johnson is stepping down now.
What sort of man is Boris Johnson? He seems to be a very buoyant, very sort of gregarious sort of character, but he seems also to have a thin skin on occasion.
He does have a thin skin. I was his deputy way back in the 1990s. We were both reporting on the EU for the Daily Telegraph, and we were in an office of two. You get to know someone pretty well. And when he's under pressure, when things aren't going his way, when he thinks that he's being sort of slighted or contained in any way, he does have this ferocious temper, which I've seen, and I'm sure many members of his family have seen. And sometimes I think that, you know, some of the... The first thing you notice is his eyes kind of narrow and his face changes colour, and then it is quite an intense, quite aggressive temper. I used to feel quite uncomfortable being a woman on my own. I mean, it wasn't sort of physically threatening, but it was intimidating. I think that's the best word.
Were you frightened of him?
I was a bit frightened of him, yeah.
So what did you do when you knew that the red mist was descending? Did you take yourself out of that situation?
Well, I mean, the first time I simply couldn't believe that a colleague could behave like that. I mean, the shouting, the swearing, the sort of slightly out of control look that he has. So I stepped back, as anyone would. But yes, if I ever saw that happening, I'd make sure I wasn't in the office on my own. I didn't like it.
How do you think he'll be dealing with the situation at the moment?
The problem that he has is that the stability he used to have in his life is gone. That was Marina. She was the rock. She sorted out his life. She put up with so much. She indulged him, but she kept him on the straight and narrow. He doesn't have that now. I mean, his personal life is chaotic. I'm not quite sure.
Is it chaotic? I mean, he has his first lady, the first girlfriend that is in number 10 Downing Street. They've even got a dog.
They've even got a dog, but we don't even know...
Domestic bliss.
We don't even... I mean, we don't know how actually domestic bliss picture that really is. I mean, the dog may just be something that he thought would be electorally helpful to him. What we don't know is how many...
You're such a journalist.
I am such a journalist, but I've seen these things before, and I remember him saying he didn't like pets. So it's a bit strange that he's got...
When did he say he didn't like pets?
Well, one of those conversations that we used to have, because actually I like cats, and we used to talk about that, and he didn't like pets. I remember him saying that. So I was quite surprised, you know, on that level that he got a dog. But I mean, let's go back to his private life for a second. So we don't know whether his marriage is completely over. We don't know whether the divorce has gone through. We don't know quite what the future is with Carrie. We hear all sorts of rumours. We don't know how many children he has. We do know that the children that he had with Marina are not happy about things, that there are, you know, problems there, that it sounds like they haven't even met Carrie yet.
Harry, I think, is 5-6 years older than his daughter.
That's right.
I think that's one of the issues, isn't it?
I think that is one of the issues. And so you don't have a stability there that you would if you were, you know, had a long-term stable relationship. And now the cracks are showing in the wider Johnson family as well. And if you look at Ivo Dornay's Twitter feed, for example, Ivo Dornay is married to Boris Johnson's sister, Rachel. I mean, he was congratulating Joe very strongly on Twitter earlier, and suggesting really that, you know, that rift, that division goes much further than just Joe and Boris. And believe you me, that will be painful for both men. Boris will be upset about this, angry, sure, but I think also upset.
You say that, you know, he can be mercurial, but, you know, that strong character that you've talked about is why he's in number 10 now, because lesser men would have given up when last time Michael Gove stood against him in 2016.
I think that, I mean, look, you know, he is incredibly determined. I mean, it is all about winning. It's always been all about winning with Boris Johnson. That he's come back again and again and again, hasn't he? He's a great opportunist. I've often compared him to a great white shark in the shallows, waiting for the right time for his prey. It is also like a game for him. I see that Ken Clarke has asked the Prime Minister to stop treating all this like a game, but it certainly has that feeling. And when I wrote about him, when I talked to more than 200 people about him for this book, so many people said, and very much the impression I got too, having got to know him, is that it was all about power rather than what he would do with that power. So we still don't have a plan.
The king of the world, was that right?
World king. And we still don't have a plan. We don't know what his proposals are. And he says that progress is being made, but the Europeans saying, well, where is this negotiating team? Because we haven't seen them. So I still don't have confidence, actually, that he is that strong man with a plan who's going to get us out of this mess.
King of the world, that was the line from the Titanic, wasn't it?
I think
and we know what happened there.
We do know what happened there.
I'm being flippant. It's good
Hopefully
to talk
not
to
the
you.
same here.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you.